Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm really excited to be here today with one of the co-founders and directors of Humanitix, Mr. Adam McCurdie. And my apologies if I mispronounced the last name, Adam, but I just wanted to, before, just briefly say that their mission at Humanitix is to provide opportunity through education to every child who's left behind with poverty, disadvantage, or disability. So welcome, Mr. Adam. How are you, my friend?
Great. Thanks, Eric. I'm really happy to be here.
Super excited to have you, my friend. It's a pleasure and an honest, great way to really, give to the masses. How long, I really want to get started off, and get excited about, how long have you, yourself and your co-founder, Josh, been on this journey?
Well, we originally became friends in high school, which was, I don't know, whatever that was, 13, 14 years ago. And that's when our relationship first started. And, but really Humanitix started 5 years ago. And it's been ever since then that we took that plunge and took that leap into taking what was a crazy idea in redistributing the profits from booking fees and events ticketing to fund education, and just saying, you know what, let's give this a go, and let's risk it and use our own money to fund fund its growth and its creation.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about Humanitix, because you mentioned a little bit about profits and that distribution of the booking fees, and I think that a lot of people can get confused with where the profits go, how they're being distributed, and it's fascinating because I personally even got confused with that. So I think that it's an opportunity to maybe clarify and verify for so many people of what specifically Humanitix does and how they're able to help so many people.
Sure. Well, the events ticketing industry itself generates billions and billions of dollars in booking fees every single year. And that's that, $5, $10, maybe $20 booking fee you see right at the end of a transaction when you're buying a ticket to everything from a music festival to a conference or a workshop or a cooking class or anything of that nature. And everybody hates booking fees. And we thought to ourselves, well, what if we could create the first not-for-profit ticketing platform that event organizers can use to create ticketing pages and sell tickets to their events? And that could be any event, from a 10-person yoga class or cooking class, all the way through to thousands of people at a festival or a conference or a gala dinner, an awards night, anything. They can use our platform instead. And those profits from all those booking fees of their event will rather be redistributed through our model into funding either Indigenous Scholarships here in Australia or our girls' education program, which focuses on providing education to the most disadvantaged girls in low-income countries. And that would be a much better outcome if we could produce that, and we could create a multi-million-dollar annuity-like funding stream into these programs at no cost to anyone, because it's just fun redistributing the profits of these booking fees that were being produced. As it's turned out, in the process of creating Humanitix, we've also found a way to lower booking fees. So now we're in the situation that organizers use Humanitix, instead of other platforms, because they say, well, I love what you're doing around, using the profits of these fees to fund, either my choice of either the Indigenous Scholarships or the girls' literacy programs. But your booking fees are also lower, so everyone's saving money in the process. Yeah. And that's just been an awesome kind of 1-2 punch that just makes so much sense, and it's been really the backbone of why we've grown so quickly.
I love it, and I think so. I think that's huge, and the fact that you guys have really changed and disrupted kind of the industry at that category and that level so fast, right? Over the past 5 years, I mean, for an industry that's been around for quite some time. And now moving forward is like, what else is possible? Peter Diamandis, he talks always about, where the next, that Moore's law, right? Or Rose's law moving forward, how it's continuously evolving and disrupting to the next level from past and moving forward. And I think, so where do you think this is going in the next decade?
Well, it's amazing from a more broader perspective to watch social enterprises and for-purpose models become much more common now, which is great in every single industry. And I think that trend is going to continue. And I think consumers and businesses are really more and more getting behind those types of brands and those types of services. I mean, we see it ourselves in events ticketing, where the event organizer's event is now attributed to funding an Indigenous child's scholarship for the year. And that for their own brand is very powerful to communicate that to their customers. So it becomes good business to do the right thing and to be a part of something that's pushing the world forward in a benevolent way. And so I think that should only continue more and more. For us, over the next 10 years, you know, we're really focused on ticketing. We're doing it. We've grown tremendously, and we're doing a fortune of good work, but there's so much more left to go. So for us, it's a matter of keeping on improving the platform so that we can be going after bigger, more sophisticated events to essentially capture more booking fees and redistribute more profits into education programs. It's been awesome that we've got the support of our biggest backers are the foundations of Google and Atlassian. And it's with their help and our engineering team, you know, we've managed to do great work in creating a piece of technology, a platform that really stands on its own. But our ambition is to really be the leader in technology as well in the events ticketing space. Because organizers, in my opinion, when it comes to a social enterprise or a for-purpose model, it's incredibly important that the founders and the team recognize that the only way this social enterprise is going to flourish and their social enterprise can flourish is if the price point that they're offering their service and the actual, whether it's technology or whatever it is, the actual good or service that they're providing strives to be as good or the best in its industry, as well as being the most ethical and best outcome for the planet.
100%. I love that. Yes, absolutely. And you know, I read one of those articles about, you know, how you guys are at the forefront of the IT category as well, right? You know, an IT company with a great model and really establishing yourselves in that way and providing also with that integrity, that ethical standpoint, I think is amazing, is beautiful. So I always talk about, you know, on the podcast with the show with a lot of the listeners, we discuss, you know, people's X factor and their Y factor. And I often say, you know, what your X factor really determines your Y factor, and X factor being your experience of, you know, life, of appreciation of what behind your X factor or your experience has allowed you to really push your limit. What is your X factor, I guess, to be real forward with it? What's the X factor?
Honestly, I've reflected on this quite a bit, also with my co-founder, Josh. And it's having a good co-founder relationship. That's it. That's the everything. You know, we started this on, I was a management consultant as a, you know, trained engineer. Josh was in finance. He was working at a hedge fund. And we had this crazy idea, and, you know, it's very difficult to raise money for a not-for-profit. So long story short, we had to fund it ourselves. But we don't come from a lot of money. So we were faced with a tough choice. Do we keep building Humanitix in our spare time and trying, and, you know, it's very difficult to get something going just in your spare time? Or do we take the leap and really go at it full time? So what we ended up doing is, on a handshake, just saying, okay, why don't I, because of my engineering background, leave my job, give up my salary, and focus on Humanitix full time, whilst at the same time Josh would stay in his job, and then we would share his salary so that we would both be making the same financial sacrifice. And that would be a way that we could give Humanitix a really good shot, while simultaneously keeping ourselves financially afloat by being able to provide for ourselves and seed and funding the seed funding of the business. And we did that for 16 months, just on a handshake. And it worked out fantastically. There were no major arguments or issues. And then after 16 months, you know, Josh joined me full time. At that stage, we still hadn't raised any money. So then we were volunteering both full time in the platform. But at that stage, it was really kind of picking up steam and becoming a thing. And it was only months after that that we raised our first money from some amazing pioneering philanthropists who saw what we were doing and thought it was awesome and made a lot of sense. And then we grew the team from there. But I think really that is kind of really transcended into our team's culture, into the way that we treat our clients, our event organizers, and just kind of on the day-to-day personal basis, the way that I stay motivated, and we just complement each other incredibly well. So
I love it.
We've got different skills, but similar skills, a similar mindset, but different points of view. It's been a part luck, part I don't know what, but it's been amazing. It's definitely our X factor.
I love it. I think that's brilliant. And the fact of massive trust, right? Like for 16 months to have that type of trust into one another, right? Essentially is huge, right? So that's a huge trickle down effect that I would love. So what about the big why behind it? What about the big why behind all of this, behind, what you guys bring to the table? What's the big why?
The big why is us. We traveled a hell of a lot, and we've had a long history, a long friendship. And when it was coming to the pointy end of deciding on a career and deciding what to do with our lives long term, we just really started asking each other the tough questions of what the hell do we want to be doing with our time, and what is the best thing to be doing with our time. And to us, what really resonated the most was giving others the similar type of opportunity that we have. Growing up in Australia, incredible country. We both received great educations. We went on to university. We've been given all the opportunity in life. That's unfortunately not the common story around the rest of the planet in many areas. And so we thought, to us, what should we do with our time? And if that's really, really important to us, then how can we make the biggest impact in that? And typically there's two options. One is that you try and make as much money as you can by doing whatever you can to make the money. And then later on in life, start to become a philanthropist. And there's lots who do that, and they do amazing work, and it's a very noble path. The second option is to, from day one, go, volunteer in a third world country. And but often that's not a very sustainable strategy for people, because they themselves end up being financially dependent on other things and not being able to support themselves. It's a very, very difficult path. But we thought perhaps there's a third way, and a way that we could produce way more impact than on our own, which would be, what if we could use our skills that we've gained to create a business that disrupts a giant industry and harvests all of its profits into funding education programs for disadvantaged kids? Surely that's a way that our combined efforts of just the two of us could produce so much more impact than the two of us on our own working at a charity or trying to get lucky in life and make a lot of money, and maybe in 40 years time turning around and donating money. So it was really that third path, and recognizing that, what the hell do we want to be doing with our time?
Yeah.
And that, to us, this is honestly this is the best thing that we can be doing with our time. It's disruptive technology, business, global growth, all for the sake of providing education for disadvantaged students. It's like it's just a perfect combination in our minds of what's exciting and fulfilling and providing a great contribution to the planet.
Yeah, you're fulfilling. You're helping so many individuals. It's so, like you said, it's all encompassing, right? It allows you to really, so many people, they look on that mission of wanting to give and appreciate more, and you can do that every single day because you're appreciating your life. You're giving more. You're supporting more. You're stepping it up into the next level ongoingly. So tell me about and that really at the forefront is resilience. I think that there's been so much resilience that you and Josh have gone through, and pushing that consistently, for the 16 months that he was, on the handshake, and then moving forward consistently. So, that's tremendous, right? Like the resilience that's needed and associated with that, I think that is, really, I definitely, admire that tremendously. So,
you see it in our team now. We've got a big team, predominantly here in Australia, also in New Zealand. And, when an account manager is taking care of an event organizer, to make sure that they're happy and they're being they're being set up properly and answering any of their questions. There's that care factor of wanting to satisfy clients and make a business thrive and do well by doing well by your clients, which is intrinsic in every company. But at the same time, they know that whatever they do and however happy that they make that client translates directly into the number of Indigenous scholarships that we provide. And they know that the happier they make a client, the more likely a client is going to refer us as like, you should use Humanitix instead of Eventbrite or whoever,
Yep.
and that's going to translate into more Indigenous scholarships. So our software engineers are exactly the same thing, where they'll be solving complex engineering problems in seating maps of complex seating arrangements and ticket allocations and all that kind of stuff. That's really nitty-gritty hard engineering that translates into girls' literacy programs in disadvantaged countries. Yeah. It's amazing.
And it's important to let people know that there's awareness that there's something out there like that, because as successful as you guys have been, I'm certain there's people out there that still aren't certain. They don't know, right? They don't know what they don't know. So it's an opportunity for people to be like, wow, there's another platform that actually gives back more, and it still would get me the same result that I would using any other platform, but now I can actually do something more powerfully in congruence and aligned with their overall mission and your overall mission, and it works just hand in hand. And I think it's just it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant.
And that's why we actually went for a not-for-profit model. So Humanitix is actually a registered charity. And what that means is that there are no shareholders of Humanitix. So that there is no equity. There is no, we get successful and Ticketmaster buys us for $1 billion. That's just not a possibility. It also means that there's no shareholders who have invested in Humanitix and are waiting for their return. The Atlassians and the Googles that have given us money, that's purely a donation. And all the other philanthropists that have supported us, it's purely a donation. So we found that was a much cleaner model to go with, albeit it was very difficult to raise money for a not-for-profit ticketing platform, near impossible. But we found our believers, we got there. But we thought if we could pull it off as a not-for-profit, the whole model's so much more clean, because you're able to just redistribute all your profits from booking fees without having to worry about shareholders needing their return, which is typically that kind of trade-off for an organization.
I love it. And, just so we can maybe actually even clarify a few things, because I think there may be a lot of listeners that don't really know how a not-for-profit works, if they wanted to, because how specifically, do you sustain yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business, as, there's still going to be overhead. There's still going to be, employees. There's still going to be. So I guess if you don't mind clarifying and verifying for everybody that's listening, what a not-for-profit still at the end of the day means, so people are clear.
Yeah, a not-for-profit really just means that there are no shareholders of the business. So everyone that works for a not-for-profit, and there's lots of them, earns a salary in just the same way as anyone would at a company. And it's the right thing to pay people what they're worth. So our engineers earn engineering salaries. Everyone earns. It's unethical to pay people less than what they're worth. And so people earn salaries. The difference in a not-for-profit compared to a regular for-profit company is that in a for-profit company, typically you have the founders that own a lot of equity. Then you have venture capitalists and investors who invested in the company that own a percentage of the company. And maybe some of the employees too have been given some equity and own a percentage of the company. And what that means is over time, they're able to sell that equity to somebody else for a return. They're able to sell their shares and get money for it. And long-term, it means that they can even list on the stock market in an IPO. And so now you can become a publicly traded company by selling a lot of your shares over to the public market. And again, you can make an absolute fortune if you're running a multi-billion-dollar company that ends up IPOing. That's really the key difference. But in a not-for-profit, there is no equity. And not just that, there is a constitution, which by not to go too much into the detail of the law, but it's called a company limited by guarantee, which essentially means that if Humanitix or any not-for-profit, which is typically a company limited by guarantee, if its assets, if the company needs to be wound up and its assets sold, the money received from selling those assets needs to be directed into the mission that the company has set out in its constitution.
Beautiful.
And that mission is typically a benevolent mission. In our case, it's funding education for disadvantaged students. So if we ever had to sell Humanitix and just sell its assets, we as owners or whatever, nobody can extract a return from selling those assets. We would have to sell those assets, get the money, and then that money would be redistributed into more education programs. Unfortunately, that would mean Humanitix would be over, which would be sad. But that's the key difference with a not-for-profit model. It's the equity, it's the shareholding. So in our case, another way to look at it is that instead of having shareholders, it's the disadvantaged students, like the girls' literacy programs and the Indigenous scholarships. They are our shareholders. Beautiful. Because those kids are the ones that receive all the profits from the company, which is typically what shareholders would receive. They receive the profits of the company.
I love it. I think that that's there's a lot of principles behind that, and I guess I'm a big fan of Ray Dalio, and he really talks about how your values and your actions come together to create your principles, right? And how that's really important. So I guess I'd love to know, and I think that this really kind of ties in real beautifully with your mission, is how do your values really show up in your work, in that mission?
Honestly, it's just a lot of it is giving a shit, and we give a shit about each other as a team. We give a shit about our clients. We care. We genuinely care, and then we care about the world, which is why we've created a not-for-profit that funds education for disadvantaged kids. And I think it's just that caring factor and caring for others and looking out for other people that goes across everything that we do. And it's really easy it becomes easier to create a nice company culture when you're in that kind of position. For our first few years creating Humanitix, we moved back to my parents' place, and we were working out of their garage. And my grandpa lives with my parents now. He's like the sweetest old man, and a dog. And we grew to a team of 10 in my parents' place. And they'd come over, they'd see Henry, my grandpa, they see the dog, my parents. My parents are thankfully lovely people who, to be honest, I think they were a bit lonely at home, so they were thrilled to have a business. They've been sad.
I love parents. We're so blessed to have them, aren't we?
But yeah, and they're amazing, and it's and so it's just that kind of family vibe. It's caring about each other, caring about our clients, caring about the kids whose education that we fund, and there's just no bullshit where you can. It's impossible to put on a work face or a bullshit work persona if you're in that kind of an environment, and I think that's made it easier for us to have a fantastic culture.
Adam, has it always been like that for you, bro? Because I have great parents. I literally just got off the phone with them just before we got out the thing. I was saying they're in Canada, and I'm saying, hey, bye, I gotta go. I have great, I give a shit about people too now. But I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it wasn't always like that. It was, sometimes I was, not the nicest person in the world. So has there been, some trials and tribulations that, you've experienced that have really kind of been, a decision maker where you're like, no, I'm going this way versus the other way? Or has it been more of, what's the journey been on for yourself, for you specifically, and how did that tie back into Humanitix?
Yeah, to be honest, my parents have been amazingly supportive over the whole journey. I've got so much to thank them for. They, where I think a lot of parents would be concerned, I studied engineering and mathematics at university. I was always, into the sciences and into building things and making things. And I got a great job at a really great consulting firm, working on really big, interesting projects with very intelligent people. And doing that for a number of years. And when I decided, in collaboration with Josh, et cetera, to just say, what, I really want to just go off and do my own thing. And I really want to go off and pursue this crazy idea of a platform that's a charity that funds its education programs through events ticketing and disrupts an industry. And I know you've never heard anything like it before, but I think this could be really cool, and I think this could work. My parents were incredibly supportive. They just said, go for it. And I count myself pretty grateful for that, because I don't think that's necessarily the case for everyone. So that was awesome.
What about before that? What about, because like family is so important, and I love that you touched on it, because I think that we're blessed. We have family, we have people behind us that support us. You ended up having a great co-founder. But people that are on the journey that don't have that type of support, that they don't have that support behind them, I just really want to touch on, is there anything that they can do that really allows them to push back? Because sometimes that, it could be a lonely road, right? It could be a lonely road, and it's that push, that desire, that hunger to want to create, do more, be more, accomplish more in life. What is it that kept you going no matter what?
I would say those people, find your people. If you don't have people, you've got two choices. You can do both at the same time. You got one is you can say, all right, how do I become, whether it's, I'm just going to meditate more, I'm going to become more focused and become more driven, and I'm going to push through this adversity, I'm going to push through this loneliness, and I'm just going to find a will, I'm going to find a way, I'm going to get there. I'd say that's all great. I'm a big advocate of meditation, self-improvement, the works. I'd say do all that, but try solve the lonely thing too. Try find your people. Try find, whether that is a co-founder, or whether that is a friend or a mentor, but a real mentor, not a mentor who's just kind of taking a fee to just provide you some shady advice. I'm talking a real somebody that believes in you and says, I really like this, and I really respect your ambition, I respect whatever, and you know what, I want to help you. And that makes a big difference, and that's tough to find, so you need a bit of patience, I think. But you've got to just be getting out there, talking to people, and not bullshitting. Just bring your genuine self, because if you're coming to somebody and they're asking, how's your business, and every time they ask you how's it going, you're just like, yeah, it's great, it's awesome, and things are doing well, and things are, you should, it would be great to get your advice on this, that. Doesn't, most likely just going to look at you and say, well, that's cool, man, sounds like you've got it all sorted, good luck. And then you go home and you cry yourself to sleep because everything's not going so well, and you don't know what's happening next. But there's a healthy amount of vulnerability that you can show somebody, to connect with somebody who then says, I really respect that. Yeah, I'd love to help you. I really want to help this person, and then solve the loneliness factor too, as well as the whole self-improvement thing.
Wow, that's really it's refreshing too to see, because I think that there's so many entrepreneurs out there that they fear the vulnerability, or saying that because they see this big vision of what's possible, that they think that they have to know all of how the T's cross, how the I's are dotted. They need to know that roadmap right now, and sometimes it's that willingness to, holy cow, yeah, I'm struggling. And I may need some help, and I may need some help, or I may need to be vulnerable about being surrounded and around incredible people. And the people that are incredible are only going to know how to help you if you ask for it, right?
Right.
A quick story it's so fascinating, because you're talking, I jumped into Platinum Partnership with Tony, and I had no idea what I was doing, and it was scary, but all these amazing entrepreneurs were around me. And I was comparing. How many of us compare like that? You know what I mean? And, I guess, and to turn that around is like, how have you ever compared yourself to somebody that's ahead of you?
That's very, very interesting. Yeah.
I'm asking, I genuinely would love, have you ever done that, Adam? Have you ever compared yourself to anybody that's ahead of you like that? Have you taken the time or thought? Because, I'm guilty of it 100%.
Yeah, to be honest, I have, and it's, you stop it as much as you can, because it's not worth it. I mean, you'll see somebody who's who's flying pretty fast, and you know, they've reached great heights, and they're doing awesome things, and their startup or business or whatever is taking off, and you know, yours is taking a bit extra time. But you just got to remind yourself, it's just such a waste of time. You're not achieving anything. You're not doing anything. You're just making yourself feel bad. And there's a billion yardsticks you can use. It's like, well, you can compare yourself also to everyone that's not flying, that's flying slower than you. You know, so what? You
And that's
just
the
got to
thing.
try not do that.
There's so many people, you know, startups that are going to be out there and they'll be like, holy cow, Humanitix got, you know, Google or Atlassian, or they were able to get this help, and they're comparing themselves to, you know, what you guys have accomplished or what you guys have created. And, you know, my hope and my, to anybody listening right now is like, you know, take the time to realize that, you know, there was a lot of hunger and a lot of resilience and a lot of push behind the why, you know, that Adam and Josh have continued to do, and they continue to, and it trickles down to their team now, right? And it's really beautiful to watch. And now it's like, this could be a time, you know, especially in these times where there's so much uncertainty, there's still an opportunity that if you decide to find it, if you decide to look for it.
I also think, you know, what I see a lot of is with startup founders or startups in general, comparing themselves to others based on how much money they've raised and from who they've raised money. It's very important in many cases to raise money, and it's impressive in many ways to raise money from, you know, big venture capitalists or big companies. But that's not success. Success is happy clients, happy customers, and lots of them, and something that's providing value to whichever subset of people that you focused on providing value to. And I think if you focus on that, first of all, it's far better for your business, and it gives you more likelihood of raising money, because when when you get assessed for raising money, they just, you know, they look at what's going on under the hood. But secondly, when you focus on that, you know, there's less comparisons, because it's just your world, your game. How do I make my clients happy? How do I make my customers happy? How do I make my service, my product better? How do I grow more in that? And then everything else follows, rather than comparing who raised what from Sequoia or whoever.
Yeah. Actually, you know, touching on raising money, because I was kind of really, you know, I really wanted to get, you know, just to see that process or understand it. You know, and I'm sure a lot of, you know, the listeners would love to really understand what's the process of you know, raising money as a startup founder, as a startup company. You know, do you mind describing that process of what it looks like? Is it really, you know, long? Is it short? Is it something they can do? People, you know, is there any resources out there that, you know, somebody that would be listening right now would be excited about to figure out from somebody that's been in their shoes?
From my perspective, I don't think there is a standard path.
Yep.
There's many paths. You know, people can go into accelerators, and as part of that accelerator, you then get put in some inside track, supposing that you make it through all the rounds of the accelerator. So you've got access to capital via that. You know, for others and most, I mean, for us as a not-for-profit, that was particularly unique. We had to really forge our own path there, because we can't go to a Sequoia and say, hey, do you want to give us money? Because they'll say, well, how much equity do I get? And we say, none. And they say, that doesn't sound like a good deal. So, you know, so we had to forge a very different path, but I don't think there is a consistent path. I think some of the lessons I've seen is that you've got some early founders who expect companies to give them money. They expect to raise money on an idea, and nobody's going to give you money for an idea unless you are a proven rock star with a team that's done it 1, 2, 3 times before, so that you know, a funder can look at you and say, I know it's just an idea, I know you haven't built anything, but you've done this 3 times before, 3 other companies, you know how to crush it, you know, you've got all the infrastructure behind you to do it, so I'm going to give you money for just an idea. But if you're a first-time founder, generally speaking, you're not raising money on an idea. So step 1 is not raising money. Step 1 is how to be scrappy as hell to put together call it a pilot call it a minimum viable product, call it whatever you want. It's a skateboard that's going to get you to your car after you raise money. And you want to demonstrate value, you want to demonstrate, and actually being able to demonstrate success, in other words, revenue or users or whatever it is, with a platform that is, or whatever it is, that's a very basic pilot type product or service, is actually more impressive, because you can then say to a potential funder, look, we were incredibly scrappy. This is our story over the last, 6, 12 months, however long, could be years. We put together this basic service. We've got this many users, which is super impressive for these reasons. This is the feedback we're getting, and this is where we know we need to get to next. It's amazing that we've been able to achieve so much with so little resources.
Yeah.
We're now coming to you for funding because now we really want to make this thing go. And that's very impressive, because they'll say, well, that's amazing. That's what we did with our ticketing platform. When we first started, we didn't build this Rolls-Royce ticketing platform that we're on now. That's, really competing with the best out there for features and functionality. We didn't start like that. We started with a very basic ticketing platform that could only cater to small, 20, 100-person events, very minimal requirements and features that we offered. And we got such big user growth in just that small section of the events market that when it came to raising money from philanthropists, we said to them, look how shit our ticketing platform is.
Wow.
But despite that, look how many people want to use it, and they're happy because, for them in their world, we give them everything they need. It's not the best in the world, but it's everything they need. And they love it. They love the model. They love the price. They love us. It's a concept that works. And so that's, despite the platform being average at best. And so that's when you can convince a funder to say, okay, I'm going to fund you. And then you go off with the money like we did, and you build obviously the next iteration of your platform so that you become a leader in a platform sense.
I love that you went through that process so specifically, because I think there's so many, they get stuck, paralysis by analysis, founders or entrepreneurs at the start, they really stop because they procrastinate because they want to perfect everything, right? They want to think they need to have this perfect system. And a lot of it's fat. Like when you talk about this, like a lot of my clients, end up being they want to be these perfect, they have this big idea, right? But they forget that it does take a process to start, to build a platform, to build a foundation. There's a jump off point at some way, and then that's that minimal viable product or minimal successful program or whatever you want to call it. And so I love that so thank you for sharing that, because I think there's going to be a lot that really helps a lot and opens up the eyes of so many, right? So I really, I'm curious if you don't mind, if I'll pivot a little bit right now. I just want to know, so when you look at your competitors, I say that in quotation marks, competitors, because I believe that really it's a blue ocean out there. We make a decision by differentiating. There really is no competition. If somebody looks at your platform and says, oh, they have that opposite view of it's a not-for-profit where they're more for profit, and they come from an angle of it's not sustainable or growing or what's in it for you, how do you, because I'm sure you've been there, do you respond to that?
So if I understand the question, we've essentially got an event organizer that's skeptical about our model. And just a bit like, what's this not-for-profit nonsense?
Where it should be for profit, you know what I mean? Or even a competitor that's doing what you're doing, but they're for profit, right? And they just approach it from that opposite view where, what's in it for me, and you're looking at this. So how do you respond to that type of criticism, I guess?
Sure. Firstly, what's been really nice is we haven't got any of that criticism. Cool. And I think the main reason for that is because, us being a not-for-profit, it's just us as owners choosing what we want to do with the profits of our business, which, if I as an owner want to own the profits of my business and go off and buy a nice house, I don't get judged by my clients for the house I bought. it's just you do with it whatever you want. As me and Josh, we've decided to have that all funneled into education programs for disadvantaged kids. So that's, firstly, it's just what we've decided to do with the company's profits.
Yeah.
But secondly, it's we don't really get any of that pushback because it's so transparent. So when an organizer runs an event on Humanitix, they've got their dashboard with all their, sales analytics and, how each ticket type is selling and all fancy charts and everything they want. But in that, right front and center is the impact widget, which, as they sell tickets live in real time, we report to them exactly how much to the cent has been redistributed from the profits of the booking fees into funding their education project of choice. And that means that at any time during ticket sales, they're able to tell how much our model has provided in impact and what that translates to in how many scholarships or how many girls literacy programs throughout the year. So what that actually translates to an impact live in real time at any time. So we have organizers, we have a very clear conversation with organizers, which is our booking fees are lower.
Yeah.
Our platform, let us give you a demo and show you why it's better for you, because we've built all these fancy features that others don't have. And, we really think we're right up there fighting fit with the best of the platforms in the world. And we'll show you. And then they really respond to that well. But then thirdly, you're going to be able to see exactly how much impact your event is making live in any time. That's like your music festival. And then you're able to go to your community and tell your patrons that have bought tickets to your events, hey guys, really looking forward to seeing you next week or month at the music festival. Just wanted to let you know that we've actually provided 3 Indigenous scholarships just from the ticketing of this event, because that's what our organization's about and that's what we care about as community. And that has not cost the organizer or the consumer anything additional. And so, if somebody wants to, it would just be illogical for somebody to say, 100%. I don't like you because you're a not-for-profit. Yeah. Like, okay,
100%.
Would you prefer I just got rich? Is that what's weird? Is that weirding you out? So I guess that's probably the biggest reason that we don't get that pushback, because we make it make sense for the event organizer. You would use Humanitix because it's the logical, good business decision as well as better for the planet decision. So whether you're super ethical and want, to only use ethical products and, that type of person, that makes sense to use Humanitix. But also we've intentionally positioned it that if you just care about the price and your business and, community engagement and that, then you'll use Humanitix too, because it makes all the sense in the world. It's really
so it's a no-brainer for any business, because there's really nobody really using a similar model like that, right? Am I right?
No, there's not. And it's like I said, that I think that the biggest reason for that is the barrier to our model is that the founders and owners have to relinquish all equity share ownership of the company, which means that you can't become extremely wealthy from the enterprise.
Yeah. So, you've given us a process behind your business. You've given us kind of, an understanding of what Humanitix is all about. You talked about, yourself, your co-founder, all these amazing experiences and tons of successes, with connecting with amazing philanthropists, Atlassian, Google. Now, a lot of people, and you've even discussed, specifically around, if you're a startup and, how you go through that push of that resilience, what would be one reason why people fail when they start?
Start a project or start a company or a startup?
A startup, a business, a company. What would you say would be one reason people fail?
They probably fail because the biggest reason is they never start. That's what kills the most ideas. Everyone's got some great idea that they've been thinking about that they know is going to work, but then 10 years from now they see pop up and say, oh, I had that idea first. It's like, oh, good on you.
Yeah.
No one cares. The reason that idea failed is because the idea never started. So I think that's the biggest thing that fails ideas.
That's so clear and so profound, because it's so true. And so many people out there just think about what they can do, but it's the people that go out there and play in the arena, as Brene Brown would say, right?
Yeah, it's that. Is it a Churchill quote? Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure if it was a Churchill quote.
Yeah.
No, Roosevelt. Yeah, it was a quote from Roosevelt, the man in the arena.
Yeah, man in the arena. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And I think that's so powerful, right? Like that, if you go there and you really get creative, and you can make anything happen. So, with that, I just kind of really want to, ask you, what is a really great way? So for anybody that hasn't heard about Humanitix, or hasn't heard about you, yourself, Adam, or Josh, what's a good way to connect with you guys, or connect with Humanitix if they have more questions, if they want to find out more information? And of course, for anybody that's driving right now, I'll put these in the show notes so that you guys have access to this. But please, if you don't mind, Adam.
Well, the best way to interact with us is if anyone who's running an event, if you do small events or large events and you need a ticketing solution, just jump on humanitix.com. It takes you 5 seconds to sign up. It's free. And, have a play around with the platform. Selling free tickets are free. So if you have a barbecue for 100 people that you want to sell tickets to for free, just use us and see what it's all about. And then in there's, a live chat function which goes straight to our team here in Sydney. There's a number you can call. There's an email address you can reach out to us. You can reach out to me through my profile, through his podcast. We can show you what this whole new world of ticketing is about. Separate to that, if anyone wants to reach out, we have a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page, again, my profile. And if it's of interest to you, reach out. We'd love to have a chat and see where this journey is going to take us to next.
I love it. And of course, everybody, I'll have the links. I'll grab all those links from you, Adam, and we'll throw them in the show notes as well. And one last question, because we still have a few minutes. If you had 3 days to live, what would you do?
Ugh. It's a really hard question.
I love it because I ask every one of my guests this.
Yeah. It's made particularly harder with the whole pandemic, actually. Because, do I go see my family, but then risk giving it to my parents? Like all these ethical dilemmas. Honestly, I'd spend 3 days spending as much time as possible with the people that are closest to me and that I care about the most. Just had a nice flock of lorikeets fly by my window as I
love it.
Saying that. I'm not sure if it came through on the audio, but I just spend time with the people that I love most. So friends, like even my co-founder Josh, parents, family, my partner Natalie. It's just like that's what matters at the end of the day. I've done a lot of traveling, and that's a great thing to do, but not when there's only 3 days left. Yeah. You just hang out with people that matter.
I love it. Human connection, so important.
The most important.
Absolutely. Mr. Adam, I just want to really thank you for your time. I really want to appreciate all your insight. I'm sure there's all of these amazing listeners are going to reach out, and I'm excited to keep pushing that mission. Being a part of it. Myself, if I have any events or friends that have events, definitely be going through Humanitix, because it's honestly in the right direction. So blessing to you,
man. That's really kind of you.
Yeah, blessing to you, my friend. Blessing to Josh. Give him my best. I know he couldn't make it today, but it's totally fine. I'm super excited to meet you guys in person. And just much love. All the best.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure. You too.